I don't think my films are in the same range as Bruce's. Bruce's films were primarily...
Picture this. Two legends face off in the most famous fight scene ever filmed. One man kicks with lightning speed. The other stands like an unmovable mountain. The cameras roll, history is made, and a friendship is born that would change martial arts forever. But what really happened between Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee? After staying quiet for decades, Chuck Norris is finally ready to tell the whole truth. For over 50 years, people have wondered about the real story behind these two martial arts giants. Was their friendship real or just for the cameras? Did they actually respect each other, or was there hidden rivalry? And most importantly, what did Chuck really think about Bruce Lee as a person, not just as a fighter? Today, we're going to uncover the answers that Chuck Norris has kept locked away for most of his life. You see, when most people think about Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee, they immediately picture that incredible fight scene from Way of the Dragon. But that famous battle was just one small moment in a much deeper story. A story about two men from completely different worlds who found something special in each other. A story about respect, friendship, and what it really means to be a true martial artist. Chuck Norris was born in Oklahoma in 1940, growing up during some of America's toughest times. His family didn't have much money, and Chuck was actually a pretty shy kid who got picked on at school. It's hard to imagine the tough guy we know today as a quiet child who was afraid to speak up for himself. But that's exactly who Chuck was before martial arts changed his life forever. When Chuck joined the Air Force and got stationed in South Korea, he discovered Tang Soo Do, a Korean martial art that would become his passion. He wasn't naturally gifted at first. Chuck had to work harder than most students just to keep up. But what he lacked in natural talent, he made up for with determination that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside. He practiced until his hands bled, kicked until his legs couldn't move, and studied every technique like his life depended on it. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, a young Bruce Lee was already making waves in Hong Kong's martial arts scene. Bruce was different from Chuck in almost every way. Where Chuck was quiet and methodical, Bruce was explosive and confident. Where Chuck followed traditional training methods, Bruce was already questioning everything and creating his own path. Bruce had been acting since he was a child and had this natural charisma that made people stop and stare whenever he walked into a room. But here's what's fascinating. Both men were searching for the same thing without even knowing it. They were both looking for a way to prove themselves, to show the world that they were more than what people expected. Chuck wanted to overcome his shy nature and find his inner strength. Bruce wanted to show that a Chinese actor could be a global superstar, and that martial arts was more than just fancy moves in movies. Their paths would cross in the early 1960s when Chuck returned to America and started competing in karate tournaments. By this time, Chuck had transformed himself from that shy kid into a fighting machine. He was winning championship after championship, and his reputation was growing fast. But Chuck still felt like something was missing. He was technically perfect, but he wondered if there was more to martial arts than just winning fights. That's when he heard about this young Chinese guy who was teaching a completely different style of fighting in Los Angeles. People called it Jeet Kune Do, and they said this Bruce Lee character was doing things that nobody had ever seen before. Chuck was curious, but also a little skeptical. After all, he had spent years mastering traditional techniques. What could this newcomer possibly teach him? The first time Chuck Norris met Bruce Lee was at a martial arts demonstration in the late 1960s. Chuck walked into that room expecting to see another flashy performer, but what he found completely changed his understanding of what martial arts could be. Bruce wasn't just showing off techniques. He was explaining the philosophy behind every movement. He talked about water flowing around obstacles, about being flexible like a reed in the wind, and about fighting without fighting. Chuck was amazed by how Bruce moved. It wasn't just fast or powerful, it was intelligent. Every technique had a purpose. Every movement flowed into the next like a perfectly choreographed dance. But what impressed Chuck even more was how Bruce treated everyone in that room. He didn't act like a superior master talking down to students. Instead, he was genuinely interested in learning from everyone, including Chuck. After the demonstration, Bruce approached Chuck personally. He had heard about Chuck's tournament victories and wanted to know more about his training methods. This surprised Chuck because Bruce was already famous, already had his own students in his own school. Why would someone like that be interested in what Chuck had to say? What Chuck discovered was that Bruce Lee was like a martial arts scientist. He was constantly experimenting, constantly testing new ideas, and constantly looking for ways to improve. Bruce would take techniques from boxing, wrestling, fencing, and any other fighting style he could find. Then he would break them down, figure out what worked and what didn't, and rebuild them into something entirely new. Chuck found himself drawn into this process. Bruce would invite him to private training sessions where they would spend hours testing techniques against each other. These weren't competitions or fights. They were experiments. They would try different combinations, different timing, different approaches, always asking the same question: what works and what doesn't? During these sessions, Chuck began to see a side of Bruce Lee that the public never knew. Away from the cameras and the crowds, Bruce was incredibly humble. He would ask Chuck to show him traditional karate techniques, and he would study them with the same intensity that Chuck had seen him bring to everything else. Bruce never acted like he already knew everything. Instead, he was always a student, always learning, always growing. Chuck also discovered that Bruce was dealing with his own struggles. The Hollywood system wasn't ready for an Asian leading man, and Bruce was constantly fighting against stereotypes and prejudice. Movie executives would tell him that American audiences wouldn't accept a Chinese hero, that he should stick to playing villains or sidekicks. This frustrated Bruce deeply because he knew he had so much more to offer. But Bruce never let these setbacks make him bitter. Instead, he channeled that energy into his training and his philosophy. He would tell Chuck that every obstacle was just another opponent to overcome, another chance to grow stronger. This mindset impressed Chuck more than any fighting technique ever could. As their friendship deepened, Chuck began to understand that Bruce Lee wasn't just teaching martial arts. He was teaching a way of life. Bruce believed that martial arts should make you a better person, not just a better fighter. He talked about using minimum effort for maximum effect, about being like water that adapts to any container, about finding harmony between strength and flexibility. These conversations changed Chuck's approach to everything. He realized that all his years of rigid training had made him strong, but they had also made him inflexible in some ways. Bruce showed him how to keep his traditional foundation while opening his mind to new possibilities. It was like learning to speak a completely new language while still remembering your native tongue. The friendship between Chuck and Bruce grew stronger through their shared experiences in Hollywood. When Bruce finally got his chance to make movies that showcased his vision of martial arts, he knew exactly who he wanted to fight alongside him. Chuck wasn't just a skilled martial artist. He was someone Bruce trusted completely, someone who understood what Bruce was trying to accomplish. When Bruce offered Chuck the role in Way of the Dragon, it wasn't just about hiring a good fighter for an action scene. Bruce wanted to create something that would show the world what real martial arts looked like. He wanted an opponent who could match his speed and skill, someone who would make the fight look authentic and exciting. Chuck was honored by the offer, but he was also nervous. He had never acted in a movie before, and he would be working opposite one of the most charismatic performers in the world. Bruce sensed Chuck's nervousness and spent extra time helping him prepare. They rehearsed the fight choreography over and over until Chuck felt comfortable with every movement. What many people don't know is that Bruce designed that entire fight scene to showcase both fighters equally. He could have easily written it to make himself look superior, but that wasn't what Bruce wanted. He wanted to show that there could be mutual respect between opponents, that a great fight was like a conversation where both participants had something valuable to say. The filming of that fight scene was unlike anything Chuck had ever experienced. Bruce was a perfectionist who demanded dozens of takes to get every detail exactly right. But he was also incredibly supportive, always encouraging Chuck and making sure he felt confident in front of the camera. Between takes, Bruce would explain his vision for each sequence, helping Chuck understand not just what to do, but why they were doing it. Chuck was amazed by Bruce's creativity during filming. Bruce would sometimes change the choreography on the spot if he thought of a better way to tell the story. He treated every punch and kick like a sentence in a paragraph, making sure that the whole fight flowed together like a perfectly written story. Chuck learned more about storytelling in those few weeks than he had ever imagined possible. But the most memorable part of the filming wasn't the fighting at all. It was the conversations they had during breaks. Bruce would talk about his dreams for the future, his plans to make movies that would change how the world saw martial arts and Asian culture. He wanted to build bridges between East and West to show that people from different backgrounds could learn from each other and create something beautiful together. Chuck could see that Bruce was carrying a heavy burden. He felt responsible for representing not just himself, but his entire culture. Every movie, every interview, every public appearance was a chance to either reinforce negative stereotypes or break them down. This pressure would have crushed most people, but Bruce seemed to draw strength from it. After Way of the Dragon was released, both men's careers took off in ways they had never expected. Chuck began getting offers for more movie roles, while Bruce became an international superstar almost overnight. But success didn't change their friendship. If anything, it made them appreciate each other more because they both understood the unique challenges that came with fame. They would often meet for private training sessions, away from the public eye. These sessions were different now because both men had evolved. Chuck had learned to incorporate more fluid movements into his traditional style, while Bruce had developed an even deeper understanding of combat psychology. They pushed each other to new levels, always searching for better ways to express themselves through martial arts. Chuck noticed that fame was affecting Bruce in subtle ways. The constant attention and pressure were wearing on him, even though he never complained about it. Bruce would sometimes seem distant during their conversations, as if his mind was always working on 10 different problems at once. Chuck wished he could do something to help, but he didn't know what. Looking back now, Chuck realizes that Bruce was probably dealing with more stress than anyone knew. He was trying to manage his movie career, run his martial arts schools, take care of his family, and revolutionize an entire industry all at the same time. It was an impossible load for anyone to carry, even someone as strong as Bruce Lee. The last time Chuck saw Bruce alive was at a martial arts demonstration in 1973. Bruce seemed different that day, more intense than usual, but also somehow more peaceful. He talked about wanting to slow down a little, to spend more time with his family and focus on teaching rather than performing. He said he had proven everything he needed to prove and was ready to concentrate on passing his knowledge on to the next generation. Chuck was happy to hear this because he had been worried about his friend's health. Bruce had always pushed himself to the absolute limit, and Chuck could see that years of intense training and stress were taking their toll. They made plans to get together soon for a relaxed training session, just like the old days when they were still discovering what they could learn from each other. That meeting never happened. Just a few weeks later, Chuck got the phone call that changed everything. Bruce Lee was gone, dying suddenly at the young age of 32. Chuck couldn't believe it. Someone so full of life, so full of plans and dreams, couldn't just be gone. It seemed impossible that the world had lost such an incredible person when he still had so much to give. The grief hit Chuck harder than he had expected. He had lost training partners before, but losing Bruce felt like losing a part of himself. Bruce wasn't just a friend. He was a teacher, an inspiration, and a window into a completely different way of thinking about life. Chuck felt like he had lost his guide to a world he was still trying to understand. 4 years after Bruce's death, Chuck struggled with how to honor his friend's memory. People would constantly ask him about Bruce, wanting to hear stories and get insights into what the legendary fighter was really like. Chuck found these conversations difficult because he wanted to share the truth about Bruce, but he also wanted to protect his friend's privacy and dignity. Chuck realized that many people had the wrong idea about who Bruce Lee really was. The movies and the legends had created this image of Bruce as some kind of superhuman figure who never doubted himself and could defeat any opponent. But the Bruce that Chuck knew was much more human and much more interesting than that mythical version. The real Bruce Lee was someone who questioned everything, including himself. He was constantly experimenting and constantly learning because he never believed he had reached perfection. He was confident in his abilities, but he was also humble enough to know that there was always more to discover. This combination of confidence and humility was what made him such an effective teacher and such a good friend. Chuck also wanted people to understand that Bruce's greatest achievement wasn't his fighting ability or his movie career. His greatest achievement was his philosophy, his way of looking at life that could help anyone become a better version of themselves. Bruce believed that everyone had a potential for greatness, but most people never discovered it because they were trapped by their own limitations and fears. Over the decades, Chuck has watched as Bruce Lee's reputation has grown into something almost mythical. People talk about him like he was a superhero rather than a real person who worked incredibly hard to achieve his goals. Chuck understands why this happened, but he also thinks it misses the most important point about who Bruce really was. Bruce Lee wasn't superhuman. He was just someone who refused to accept limitations. When people told him that Asian actors couldn't be leading men, he proved them wrong. When traditional martial artists said that mixing different styles was wrong, he created his own system that worked better than anything that came before. When Hollywood said that martial art movies couldn't be serious cinema, he made films that are still studied and admired today. Now, at 85 years old, Chuck Norris has decided it's time to share the complete truth about his relationship with Bruce Lee. He wants people to understand that their friendship was built on mutual respect and a shared love of martial arts, not on competition or rivalry. They challenged each other to be better, but they were never enemies or bitter competitors. Chuck wants people to know that Bruce was one of the most generous people he ever met. Bruce would spend hours teaching techniques to anyone who was genuinely interested in learning, regardless of their skill level or background. He never hoarded knowledge or tried to keep secrets. Instead, he believed that martial art belonged to everyone and that sharing knowledge made it stronger, not weaker. He also wants people to understand that Bruce's confidence came from years of hard work, not from natural arrogance. Bruce practiced more than anyone Chuck had ever seen, constantly refining his techniques and testing his theories. He earned his reputation through dedication and effort, not through luck or natural talent alone. Chuck has also decided to share some of the more personal conversations he had with Bruce, conversations that reveal a side of the legend that few people ever saw. Bruce worried about whether he was a good enough father and husband. He struggled with the pressure of representing his culture on a global stage. He questioned whether his movies were helping or hurting perception of martial arts. These doubts and concerns didn't make Bruce weak. They made him human. Chuck believes that understanding Bruce's struggles makes his achievements even more impressive. It's easy to admire someone who seems perfect, but it's much more meaningful to admire someone who overcame real challenges and personal doubts to achieve greatness. Looking back on their friendship now, Chuck realizes that Bruce Lee taught him lessons that went far beyond martial arts. Bruce showed him how to question assumptions, how to adapt to change, and how to find strength and flexibility. These lessons helped Chuck not just in his fighting career, but in every aspect of his life. Bruce also taught Chuck about the importance of staying true to your principles while remaining open to new ideas. This balance between tradition and innovation is something Chuck has carried with him throughout his entire career. He never abandoned his traditional karate training, but he also never stopped learning and growing. Chuck believes that Bruce will be amazed by how martial arts have evolved since the 1970s. Mixed martial arts competitions have proven many of Bruce's theories about combining different fighting styles. Movies have become much more sophisticated in their portrayal of martial arts and Asian culture. And most importantly, the barriers that Bruce fought against have largely disappeared. Today, Asian actors are leading men in major Hollywood productions. Martial arts is respected as both a sport and an art form. And Bruce Lee's philosophy of personal development through martial arts has influenced millions of people around the world. In many ways, Bruce's vision of the future has come true. But Chuck also believes that Bruce will be concerned about some of the ways martial arts have changed. The focus on competition and entertainment sometimes overshadows the personal development aspects that Bruce considered most important. Chuck worries that some modern practitioners are missing the deeper lessons that martial arts can teach about discipline, respect, and personal growth. This is why Chuck has decided to speak out now. He wants to make sure that people understand what Bruce Lee was really trying to accomplish. Bruce wasn't just trying to be a great fighter or a movie star. He was trying to show people how to live better lives by overcoming their limitations and reaching their full potential. Chuck believes that Bruce's message is more relevant today than ever before. In a world full of division and conflict, Bruce's philosophy of adaptation and mutual respect offers a way forward. His idea that people from different backgrounds can learn from each other and create something beautiful together is exactly what the world needs to hear right now. The friendship between Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee proves that respect and admiration can exist between people who might seem like rivals. They came from different countries, practiced different martial arts, and had different personalities, but they found common ground in their shared passion for excellence and personal growth. Chuck wants young martial artists to understand that the greatest victories aren't won in tournaments or movie theaters. They are won in the daily struggle to become a better person. Bruce Lee understood this, and it's what made him truly great. His physical skills were impressive, but his character and philosophy were what made him legendary. As Chuck reflects on his long life and career, he realizes that meeting Bruce Lee was one of the most important things that ever happened to him. Bruce challenged him to think differently, to question his assumptions, and to never stop learning. These lessons shaped Chuck into the person he became and influenced everything he accomplished afterward. Chuck hopes that by sharing these memories and insights, he can help people understand the real Bruce Lee and carry on his legacy in the right way. Bruce believed that martial arts should make the world a better place, and Chuck believes that goal is still worth pursuing today. The truth about Bruce Lee isn't that he was perfect or superhuman. The truth is that he was an ordinary person who did extraordinary things through hard work, dedication, and an unwillingness to accept limitations. He proved that anyone can achieve greatness if they are willing to put in the effort and stay true to their principles. Chuck Norris, at 85, has finally told the complete truth about his friendship with Bruce Lee. It's a story of mutual respect, shared learning, and the power of martial arts to transform lives. It's a story that proves that the greatest achievements come not from defeating others, but from overcoming yourself and helping others do the same. Bruce Lee may be gone, but his influence continues to grow with each passing year. Through Chuck's memories and the memories of others who knew him, Bruce's spirit lives on, inspiring new generations to push beyond their limits and reach for something greater. And that, Chuck believes, is exactly what Bruce would have wanted. The legacy of Bruce Lee isn't just in the movies he made or the techniques he developed. It's in the lives he changed and the people he inspired to become better versions of themselves. Chuck Norris is proud to have been one of those people and is grateful for the chance to share that experience with the world. After staying quiet for so many years, Chuck has finally revealed the truth about one of the most important friendships in martial art history. It's a truth that shows us that real strength comes from respect, real wisdom comes from questioning, and real friendship comes from helping each other grow. These are the lessons that Bruce Lee taught, and these are the lessons that Chuck Norris wants to pass on to future generations. If this story has inspired you and given you new insights into these two martial arts legends, please show your support by hitting that like button. Share this video with anyone who loves martial arts, action movies, or stories about real friendship and respect. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories about the people who shaped the world of martial arts. Your support helps us continue bringing you the untold stories and hidden truths behind the legends you love. Thank you for watching. And remember, the greatest fight is always the one within yourself.